Sport in Wales podcast.
Supported by DragonBet.
Your go-to for Welsh sports news and views.
Hello and welcome to the Sport in Wales podcast, sponsored by DragonBet and co-founded by Alex Cuthbert and Gareth Anscombe. I'm Geraint Hardy and I'm here to keep the guests in check as we look forward to the Sport in Wales week. Please remember to click follow and thanks for listening to this podcast. And in the studio this week, because the football season is coming to a close, we've got football journalists Philip Marsh and Laurence Mora. Welcome to you both. Laurence, you've been here before, but Philip, straight to you. It's your debut on the Sport in Wales pod. How are you? How was your weekend?
Yeah, very good. Was at the Wales Women's Six Nations game, so disappointing to get the wooden spoon, but good for them to break their losing streak as well. So record crowd. So yeah, good weekend.
There you go. So that's an early start for you for that one.
Yeah, early start. Yeah, I think we were at the Principality at 10 o'clock in the morning, so that felt a bit unusual.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Checking your watch all day going, is this right? What's going on here? And Laurence, how was your weekend, mate?
Yeah, really good. I was sent off this patch, though, for my weekend. So I got the MK Dons against Sutton United game for Talksport. Sutton United fighting to stay in the league. And, of course, Steve Morrison, the ex-Cardiff manager, in charge of Sutton United. So, we were just having a little chat about that when we first about dealing with Steve, and he's got an interesting nature about him. I don't think he's a massive fan of journalists. I have to say, actually, that despite the fact that Sutton were relegated after the 4-4, 4-4, which was bonkers. Yeah, it was a really, really good game, actually. But rather. He's quite edgy when he talks to journalists, and certainly when he was on this patch, he was definitely had a few that he went after. But he was actually in quite a good mood despite being relegated from the Football League. And said I failed professionally to keep, because I was brought in to keep them in the league. But, I think we can be really proud of what we've done here. And he's got a point, to be fair. It's 1 defeat in 8. So the damage was done way before he arrived there. But is he
there to stay, do you think?
Yeah, apparently so. I think he got a new 2-year contract. So he gets to do the rebuild in the National League. But yeah, I think that, that's probably a good area for him to start in. And maybe Cardiff was far too big a club for him to get going at as a rookie manager.
Yeah, we'll see how he gets on. How did you get on with Steve Morrison, Philip?
Yeah, on the whole, not too bad. As Laurence touched on, I think there were other journalists who he had less of a liking to. I sort of got away with it, I think, for the most part. You just had to phrase your questions well, but you really had to think them through when you were talking to him, as opposed to some other managers who were more easygoing. He was very combative, but I was quite fortunate. Some of the games that I did, there were clear talking points or clear messages, and in those games it's easier when you're speaking to football managers, because you can just sort of tee them up about a topic of conversation and let them say what they need to say.
And what was interesting, so I got on fine with him, actually, to be honest, and it was good seeing him again there. But I had one post-match interview where he was being proper narky, and everything you say, you couldn't say anything, you couldn't ask a right question, do you know what I mean? And then I was sort of driving back to Chepstow, and I had to stop at Mega Services to pick something up, and he was there. He was like, "Oh, hello, mate, you all right?"
To you?
Yeah. We just had a little chat, and I was like, "Oh, this wasn't the mood you were in about half an hour ago."
Yeah, best mates in the services.
Yeah, best mates in the services, as he grabbed himself a coffee to drive back to London. But before that, not happy.
So, in press conferences, when you turn up in the week or after the game, have you, because you're all there together waiting for the managers to come in, have you got certain journals you go, right, you ask that question because you'll provoke him and get more headlines, or do you you must know who you want to ask certain questions within the group of press?
Yeah, I guess there's, depending on where you are, there's often a sort of pre-assigned or unspoken rule of who goes, but there are sort of some topics where you're more likely to get asked for if you're at the BBC or if you're at Wales Online, or depending on where you are. But I think if you're up first, particularly, you have to take the main topics head on. There's no ducking away for those. So
with the Cardiff City situation now with Bulut, would you be going to the Sky Sports person, you go first and ask him that question, or Talksport, you go first, or is it BBC Wales, you go first?
Well, I think for the kind of that collaboration, if you like, that's a lot more of the written press. So they will chat about that, they'll let Phil from The Sun, Phil Cannon or whatever, to go fire those questions in or what have you. And I think it's a little bit more there. With the radio side of things, we have like who goes first and what have you. And so, you know, you'll sometimes listen, like I'll do a bit with Rob Phillips, and Rob will be asking the questions, and I sort of listen to the answers there. Now I know I can build on a couple of those and sort of take it on, and maybe Rob's primed them up, and then you can like.
So you're working together
a little bit. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because you've got to you've got to get stuff for your own channel, because Rob or the BBC guys will be asking very Wales specific questions. For me as Talksport, it's a much more sort of general, wider kind of viewpoint for fans across Britain. So it's interesting. But you do kind of work, I think, with Bulut, if you want to use that as an example, and the fact that he hasn't signed a contract. I think I was doing a piece with Simon a couple of weeks ago from the Beeb, and he sort of asked the last question, and then that allowed me to then go, are you happy about that? Are you happy that nobody's spoken to you? And then, of course, that gives him the, no, you know, my family need to know what's happening. You know, the players need to know what's happening. So he gets that opportunity to be set up, so you can then push the questions on.
Yeah, good. So soon you'll have a weekend off. How are you going to spend your weekends off? I mean, what I would be saying is you go out on the lash on the Friday night, hit it hard, and enjoy your hangover on a Saturday. That's got to be your plan, Phil.
Well, yeah, when the football season, we've still got rugby as well until start of June, and unfortunately no Euros from a Welsh perspective, which is obviously a crying shame. So that was the hope for when the season ended, but not to be. Yeah, you've got to, make the most of the off season where you can. Few drinks if needed on the weekend, and enjoy your Saturdays in bed.
Yeah, very good. Well, Laurence, what about you? You've got kids.
You're kidding,
yeah,
right?
You DIY, cutting the grass.
You'll be doing this, you'll be doing that. I'll be absolutely desperate for the football season to kick off again. My God.
There's a list waiting for you already, right?
There is a list that's about a mile long at the moment. I'm desperately avoiding.
That's right. Speaking of avoiding things, did you avoid any calamities this season? How's the season gone from a personal, professional point of view? Any mistakes on air? Any arguments with managers? Anything like that?
A couple spring to mind. I've been really fortunate. This is the first year where I've stepped into commentary, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. The first game I did was Gillingham away for Newport County, and it was a really good game that Newport won. But I hadn't had much sort of background with it. I'd done a bit of training here and there, and then midway through the first half, Omar Bogle gets racially abused by the home crowd at Gillingham, and then the game stopped for 8 minutes or so, and I was like, oh God, I'm panicking here on air. And then at the end, there's so much added on time. Rodri, who was the producer of the show, sort of in my ear saying, oh, how long's left? And I just completely forgot that whatever I said into the mic went out on air. So I was like, 6 minutes to go, Rod, which went out as Jason Terry, who was co-commentator alongside me, and I suddenly realised what I did, and I don't know what I pretended the word Rod I said was, but I was like, 6 minutes, as I was saying, 6 minutes to go in injury time here.
You riffed it.
Yeah,
made it work.
A bit of ad lib, but that one was. It was quite a funny moment. You don't make that mistake twice.
It's good. I like that one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Laurence, you've been safe?
Well, do you know what? Actually, yeah, I haven't really... There wasn't a huge errors this season or particulars. I managed to upset a couple of managers, I'm sure, with various questions. Or press officers. I think the Cardiff press officers fed up of us asking about the contract issue for Bulut. But no one in Wales this year is going to top Rob Phillips, are they, at Rodney Parade? And Anthony is the greatest.
Yeah. I mean, Nathan Blake tried to save him as well, but there was no saving, was it, at all?
That was just wonderful. And Rob is such a pro. Did you see the way he dealt with it the next game he did?
It was Leicester, I think.
Yeah. He said, I've got the headphones, special headphones that have been tested so I can hear exactly what the crowd is singing.
I was at the Premier League of Darts. It was a couple of weeks after the first night was in Cardiff, and I was covering that event, and it was the first chant that rang around the Motorpoint Arena was Anthony's the greatest. So it really did go viral for that week or so. It was brilliant.
Oh, what a legend.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I went through the season with nothing for the first time. So last season I stopped a fight between Swansea coaches and some Cardiff security, which was good. Didn't make the press, that one, so I did well then. Season before, I think Lloyd Williams hit me with a rugby ball on my head, and he bit my tongue in the process while talking, 80 yards up and under in the warm-up, landed square in my head. So I was good this season, so I'm glad you had some stories to entertain us there, because I had absolutely nothing. I've had a really safe, boring season. Let's turn our attention to the season we've had then. Let's start with a positive, shall we, with Wrexham. We're happy to go there first. I say, Philip, this is a journo's dream, the story that's happening right now.
I remember sitting in the office at the BBC in Central Square when there was the rumours of talks that there was a takeover and it was going to be someone quite famous. And, you know, never in my wildest imagination did I imagine we would be here a few years later with Rob and Ryan in charge. It's been a fairy tale. I mean, if you're a Wrexham fan, whether that's new and you've recently got on board or if you've been there for decades, it's unbelievable, really. It's there was a small patch maybe a couple of months ago where they slightly faltered, the away form particularly dropped, and I was like, oh, come on, pick it back up, come on, for the end of the season, and they really did. So, unbelievable story, really, and long may it continue.
Yeah.
Any dealings with them?
Do you know the funniest thing with Wrexham is because Wales and the West Country is how they term my correspondent duties for Talksport. So when Wrexham becomes a story, it's like, oh yeah, Wrexham's Wales, isn't it? You're good. I say, yeah, no problem. And then they start seeing the expenses of travel, and suddenly I'm not getting Wrexham games. They're going to people who live in the northwest of England. So,
the Scousers are coming over there.
That's it, exactly. So that was a bit of an education for the Talksport guys. But yeah, no, it was. I mean, it's been fantastic to watch. It is incredible. So we're dealing with the Wales fans groups, and I know guys out there who we deal with. We get to do some presenting, like Tom Lewis, Tommy Cowse, who's just a great guy and just lived off the back of it, and now is and now is doing Men in Blazers vlogs and things like that. And Tim, who does Fearless in Devotion, which was we interviewed him. God, when I first started Eat Sleep Media, and we were doing some stuff about Wrexham, and he was so downtrodden. It was 2016, and he was so miserable, and it's a tough time being. And now he's like doing podcast lives and link ups to the US, and he's interviewed, and so I just love the fact that there are people there that have been taken on the ride. Do you know what I mean? They've not kept it to themselves, Rob and Ryan. It's not, as much as it is the Rob and Ryan show, but there are so many people that have been brilliantly affected around the town and via the club and supporter-wise. So, and I think that's a really wonderful kind of part of the story.
Yeah, I think even if you're not a Wrexham fan, you are kind of on the ride with them anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
do you agree with that?
Yeah, and just to touch on what Laurence was saying there, when you see these photos of Will Arnett or Will Ferrell rocking up to the turf for a pre-match pint, I don't think that will ever get, normal. Nothing about that seems normal when you see these photos of Wrexham fans. And what I thought was lovely is, obviously they're going to draw attention when they're up there, these Hollywood stars, but there generally seems to be a feel, from what I've seen anyway, if there's Will Ferrell, let him have his beer. And, it's just nice that they're showing that attention. It's lovely.
Yeah, we had Bryn Law on last week, and he was saying that he was talking tactics with Hugh Jackman. That just sentence just blew my mind. Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Never thought you'd hear that sentence.
No. So can they go again, do you reckon, Laurence? Because obviously it's going to be hard, but do you reckon they can go and get another promotion?
I think that might be quite difficult next season. I think it's just that another step up. Look, Phil Parkinson deserves so much credit. He has been the perfect man, isn't it? If they had somebody in there who was a bit chocolate or just loved themselves and wanted to be centre of attention, it could have all gone horribly wrong quite quickly. But he's just such a down-to-earth bloke. He just doesn't seem fazed by it at all, does he? All the attention, all the focus is, we're just going to stay steady Eddie right here. But he's not just a steady Eddie. He's actually a really good manager as well. But that next leap, I think, is much bigger and harder. And there are some very decent sized clubs that are going to be in there, and even coming down potentially from the Championship. If you think of the likes, possibly Plymouth, possibly Birmingham, Huddersfield as well. They're all decent sized clubs that are going to be tough to get past, and Bolton's are in there. It's brilliant for the documentary, but I do wonder where they go a little bit with it if they start stabilising in League One and that next push doesn't come. But, the money keeps rolling in. The US money keeps rolling in. They've got their pre-season tour out there. So again, wages talk. So, they will probably go and invest a bit this summer. And they'll be one of the few clubs at that level really investing. So they'll be in and around it, but whether they can do another promotion, So you're kind of saying playoffs at best, yeah? You think? I think in and around the playoffs. I think I'd be surprised. Actually, no, go on. I'll nail it now. I'll be surprised if they're not in the playoffs. Okay. But I don't think they'll get automatic. Okay, Philip, your thoughts?
I think I agree with pretty much everything Laurence said. I think.
No, sorry, Phil, you can't do that. That's not what podcasts are about.
I don't think they make the playoffs. I think they'll come close, and I think they'll be in the running, and come March, early April, they'll still be there or thereabouts. I think the difference in quality from League Two to League One, it is a much bigger jump. There are teams, if the likes of Birmingham, Huddersfield are very, very unlikely. They need to mind a miracle on the last day of the season to stay up. Those teams were in the Premier League only a few years ago. It's a big leap now. And you look, this year's League One was so competitive, really, really good derbies and Portsmouth, Peterborough's, some really, really strong teams in that. And Wrexham, as you say, will invest and they will add and they'll get better. Whether they can then push for that top 7 is going to be an ask,
and it's going to be a real test of how loyal that fan base is when they start to level out a little bit and not go, because like Parky obviously is a bit of a hero, but he was getting a bit of stick when they were having a few dodgy results. There was a bit of flack flying in his direction. So how they'll react to a season of possibly not being the top dogs and what have you.
Because they very rarely haven't been in the top 3 or 4 in League Two all of this year, and then the top 2 in the National League the season before that. Even if there was a couple games where they drop points, it won't be, well, if they can do that again, then fair play. But I feel it's unlikely they're going to spend the whole of next season in the top 4 places.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see how the American owners react as well, because they want to get to the Premier League. There's no doubt about that. They've been really open about it. They think it's something they can do. How kind of loyal they'll be to Phil Parkinson. If there's kind of a mid-table finish, will they act swiftly or will they have patience?
I had a good chat with Paul Mullin after he scored his 100th game at Colchester a couple of weeks back, and speaking to him at the end of the game, and it wasn't myself, but one of the local press there in Essex asked him about the Premier League, and they said Robin Ryan, and he sort of smirked and said, we all have dreams. He's like, I dream that I can still play for Liverpool one day, but realistically we have to be honest about where we are.
Well, Mo Salah's on the way out, so maybe
let's make some money up there. The new regime with Slot.
But I think you're kind of along those right sort of lines, is that they've so far, all their decisions have been very methodical and actually kind of not pushing it. And I think that by the way that they've taken advice and been quite humble with the way that they've dealt with it, like they could have put Parky under a lot of pressure, really, even in his first season. So I do think that they will allow him to have a season there, but they've also got to build the ground. Like there's infrastructure stuff there and bigger stuff that they've got to get in place for when they do.
Yeah, because there's a scenario next season that if they keep doing the building work they've got, there's certain seats they can't use at all next season. So it's going to be half-empty stadium next season as well. So that doesn't build them financially, does it?
No. And I know that so much of the money comes in from the US, right? I mean, stock coffee is not even sold over here, so it's incredible. It's bonkers. But they do need that fan base. They need that stadium being up to scratch when they hit the championship, I think, minimum. So if there's a season where they plateau and they sort of don't quite make it, and well, I mean, the documentary team would love a glorious failure, right? That's the right. If they finish 8th, rubbish. Try selling that documentary. But if they finish in this playoffs and then it's a 5-4 against Grimsby style thing, then everyone goes away and goes, wow, can't wait for the next series.
So recruitment is key, isn't it? Obviously, they're going to strengthen. But again, Brian Flynn and Bryn Law were on last week talking about Wrexham specifically with us. And
what a lineup.
I know, but Brian...
It's been dropped down this week.
No, it's good. You guys are across every team, so it's fine.
Geraint's definitely making that point as well. Sorry, Geraint.
But Brian, I'm not. Brian Flynn, listen to this, all right? He said that he knows of a Premier League player that is Wrexham bound. So I've just been sitting all this week just going,
go on, Brian.
Who on earth is that player? And he didn't even tell us off... Mike, who it was. And I was like, that's a bit naughty, really, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean?
It's probably because he's forgotten, because I heard he was up there really enjoying the hospitality the other week.
Well, that's what they do, planning their drinks on the pod, basically, him and Bryn. But they've always recruited 2 divisions above, to be fair.
Yeah.
So we're talking Premier League.
Yeah.
So could you see a world where some Premier League players drop down to League One to play, Philip?
I mean, I can't think of an example where that's ever happened. It would be quite remarkable if they... I mean, when they were in the National League and the likes of Mullin were going there, you were scratching your eyes at that, really. But this would be a whole other level. I think players dropping down from the Championship is extremely likely. The pull of going to Wrexham is obvious. Premier League, there might be one. If Flynn is right, but
what about a Danny Ward?
Yeah, or someone like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's just not playing. I know he's probably got another year or so on his contract at Leicester, and it's a big contract.
And that might be a player that they know about as well.
Fan, isn't he, and all the rest of it.
Yeah, but the fans and Okonkwo, how you say his name, he's looking to come back. It could be him that's a Premier League player, but I think we all know that he's going to go to Arsenal, go on a free, and then hopefully go back to Wrexham anyway. Wages is the other thing, isn't it? This league, we're talking 2 to 5k is the average wage bill. Championship is 15k. So you're asking players to buy into a project and also say, okay, potentially I'm going to take much less money as well.
Yeah, hugely. As I said, it's a hard sell in terms of the finances, but I guess the benefit, if it does succeed, if they do continue on this path, then any player who is there is part of that story and boosts their own stock and their own value in the process of being there. Yeah.
Do you reckon Mullin, I think he'll stay, obviously. I'm not going to say he's going to leave, but how high could he play in terms of level? Could he play in the Championship?
Well, is he an international player? That's been the debate, hasn't it, for the last 2 years?
I think we dropped that one because I don't think he can't play for Wales. He's a Scouser, do you know what I mean? So, but could he play in the Championship for Cardiff or Swansea, for example?
Well, Cardiff could do with a goal scorer.
He'd suit Cardiff better than Swansea.
Definitely, yeah. He's more that sort of player. He's less of the Swansea way in Paul Mullin, a bit more rugged, more the Cardiff as it's been in the last few years. I think he could do it in the Championship. Whether he'd be getting 25 goals a season and keeping that record going, that would be something else. But he could certainly do a job in the Championship. Premier League would be, by his own admission, pushing it a bit far.
And also age-wise, he is he's sort of wrong side of 25, hasn't he? When he made that move to Wrexham, and I think he is a Championship striker. I think when he left Cambridge, and he could have gone to the Championship and been a good player in the Championship. Another year in League One, and the 2 years in League One with Wrexham. Would he still have it for him to make it as a Championship player? That'd be a tough ask. But I think if he left right now and went and played for a Championship side, I think he'd do a good job.
Yeah.
He'd do a good job.
Okay, let's see what happens with Mullin then. Maybe we're starting something here. Who knows? Who knows?
Did Brian tell you that then? Did you get
No, he didn't. No. I'm completely making that up. I just thought it's interesting to see because we all look at him, don't we? And like Philip said, people are talking, can he play international football? Yeah. It's hard to kind of gauge what level he could go to, isn't it?
I mean, just quickly on that. I mean, we've seen Kiefer Moore come in from absolutely nowhere and play international football, right? And things like that. And other players who've done similar for Wales, we've seen to grab them and turn them into international players. So if they fit what the manager wants to do, and they're a little bit beyond the sort of orthodoxy, then you can work at international level, I think. But yeah.
Okay, let's move on to Newport County, because I know, Philip, you've watched a lot of Newport County this season. How would you assess this season? A good season?
I think on the whole, they have to be pleased. The first week of the season, I think it was just before they played Accrington on the opening day, Geraint Hardy was saying their budget's the second lowest in the league. This was before the takeover. They were preparing for a relegation fight. And only 6-7 weeks ago, Geraint Hardy was saying that the playoff race is never happening, but they were well in the hunt at one point in mid-March. So, it has fallen off a cliff in this last few weeks. It really has not worked out for them. And injuries, what's impressed me is how well they've coped with the injuries, particularly in defence. Delaney, they've lost Drysdale, McLaughlin. They've all suffered real bad injuries through this season. And they've made it work. Matt Baker, the Wales under-21, has gone there from Stoke, and he's been really good. And Bennett's been there for God knows how many years now, and he's had to fill in centre mid, centre defensive mid, centre back, and all over the shop all season as well. So I think on the whole, they have to be pleased. Not pleased with how it's gone in the last few weeks. As I said, I think it was 7 or 8 defeats on the bounce, which is not how you want to end a season. But there's certainly positives, and Geraint Hardy, I think, has done a really good job. If Wrexham hadn't have got promoted this year and you were looking at the 4 Welsh teams in the Football League, he's the manager for me that has done the best job with the resources that he had at his disposal.
Yeah, Will Evans's goals dried up towards the end as well. Having goals in your team is key at that level, isn't it? Because you can just win games from nowhere, really.
Well, I wouldn't be, if I was Wrexham and I was looking for a player to nick from the lower league to take up with me, I think Will Evans would be high on my list. I really rate him. I think he's a fantastic striker. He's got that good story. that could go into sort of the whole
the documentary.
I don't know if they sign players with good backs. So I think it comes into it a little bit. He's got that Welsh Leagues link. Played for Bala. I think there's a lot going for him in that respect. And apart from which, he is absolutely a great guy.
Yeah, he is.
An absolute diamond of a bloke. How did you find Graham to deal with? Because I've heard mixed. I had one interview with him, and that was after the Man United game, right? And so it was quite different. And Ten Hag, bloody kind of came in the middle of it and gave him a bottle of wine while I was interviewing him, which was very random.
That's not happened when I've spoken to him. We haven't had Premier League managers walking in. I've really, really enjoyed working with him.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
He is not the most animated and smiley chap, but, you know, there's never any hiding anything. He is straight talking, and, you know, there's never sort of biting back at what your questions are. It's sort of, he understands we're there to do our job, he's there to do his job, and is always really honest. And he's had his say with the officials this year as well. And sometimes you can see him biting his tongue in these post-match interviews. But yeah, on the whole, I don't have a bad word to say about him, really.
So Hugh Jenkins has said he's there to stay, which is good. With Hugh Jenkins in charge, I think one thing Newport County fans can say is that they've got a man who knows how to build a football club. How do you think, and where should he build first, do you think, Phil?
I think Graham, because staying with Graham Coughlin is the right call, absolutely. They do need investment. It's plain to see. And as I said, with the injuries, when they lost 3 or 4 players in March, then it all goes into a huge tailspin. Coughlin's talked about the fitness of the squad and said he wasn't best pleased. You know, being a professional nowadays, you have to be able to play 50 games in a season, and they have looked tired. That's the one word you'd have to use to describe how they've looked in the last month, is really tired. So, improve on the fitness side of things. That comes with investment in the club and the facilities, get a few more players in, and, who knows? They were close to a playoff push this year with nothing, and, it doesn't take a lot of money in League Two to take you up to that next sort of level of competitiveness. So it'll be interesting to see what Hugh Jenkins can do.
Yeah. Do they need a new stadium for themselves?
Well, that is a huge question, and that's the thing that just keeps coming back. That if you can't generate your own money and you can't generate your own sort of success in that respect, then I struggle to see how Hugh turns it around as he did with Swansea. But that doesn't mean to say that he can't build a really successful team that would be a really top League Two and maybe decent League One side, and can bounce around between those two divisions or be stabilised in League One. I don't see him going beyond that because of the restrictions that they have. But at the same time, how you get there is going to be really interesting. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Hugh's got great experience. He's brought in Jonathan Wilshere as well behind the scenes, who's really his media man during the time at Swansea when they went through the league. So that's another really experienced guy, a great guy. So they've got everything there, and they've got a really unique brand, I think, within Newport. Newport people will get behind it.
The fan base, I've noticed, has changed quite a bit this season. I think there's a lot of younger fans there. The buy-in from the kind of the area. I don't know if you noticed that, Philip, in the crowds.
To be honest, I have mainly only covered them this year in terms of the changing of the fans, but it's been a really nice atmosphere down there. It really has this season, even when things haven't gone particularly according to plan in games. It does get me the vibe of a younger group than maybe at Cardiff or at Swansea, but the atmosphere has been really good down there this season for the most part.
Expectations really hard, isn't it? Because the fans will have their expectations, and then within the club and the group themselves, they might have their own goals that have been set. Laurence, come to you first on this. What do you think should be a fair expectation of Newport County next season then?
For next season, well, look, I think success is reaching the playoffs. That'll be a hugely successful season. I think if they're in and around the playoffs, again, I think that may be an expectation of the fans, that they're a top 10 side and that they are competing in and around that potential final playoff place. And I think that'd be a decent season for them. It so depends on what they do this summer in terms of investment and stability behind Graham and Will Evans. What happens to Will? So
I think top half has to be minimum next year if they want to keep improving. You don't have to jump to automatics. That would be unrealistic. The club know that, and I think the fans realise that as well.
And I think that's a good place for them to be, isn't it? They if you're in that kind of 10th to 6th and you're fighting in and around that, and you have a good cup run where you kind of hit some of the national papers and you go to a big club or something along those lines, beat somebody decent at top of the championship, then I think Newport County fans are pretty happy, aren't they, in the grand scheme of things, and I feel the club's going in the right direction.
Yeah, great stuff. Okay, so happy playoffs or around the playoffs, yeah?
Yeah, I think playoffs wouldn't be unreasonable with some investment, but yeah, it's about small, unlike Wrexham, which was like, you've got to go promotion. You know, we're talking about playoffs already for League One. I think for Newport, it's more of a slow build, improve on this like 15th, 16th place finish, get to 10th, maybe the year after that, then you get to the playoffs. And if you've built something steady at that point, you've got a better team, got a better chance of winning the playoffs and go from there.
Yeah, okay. Crowds up a bit. You know, so you're filling that Rodney Parade a little bit more, because I think that'll be a big thing for them if they can be in and around that 10th to playoffs. Good cup run, and the crowds have built again. I think they'd be more than happy next season, when they also the management would be.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go to Swansea then. I haven't seen much of Swansea this season, I'll be really honest. But
what a season!
The vibes I'm getting though is really positive for next year. Am I wrong in saying that?
Oh, look, I think they've had a good end to the season. Really positive. I put a big caution on that. Look, it's been a absolute. Some of the decisions in the last 12 months have blown my mind. I mean, I think they've made some bad decisions in the last couple of years, but the last 12 months has just been phenomenally bad. Andy Coleman came in, he talks a really good game, all this kind of stuff. The mess with Russ Martin and him leaving the club is an embarrassment. The fact that they're now still chasing them financially with Southampton, there's still an argument going on there. I mean, that's their business and their lawyers will sort that out, but it's not a great look. Surely this could have been done and dusted long ago.
Or straight away.
Straight away, yeah. Like, the guy's leaving. You haven't offered him a contract as far as we could see behind the scenes. So why is he not going to go? Just because he's now going to a bigger club that wants him, then they didn't seem willing to invest in him and the style of football. They went completely and utterly away from the style of football to go to Michael Duff. To credit Andy Coleman, he saw that quite quickly. He could have belligerently stuck his heels in and just gone, no, come on, he's my man. I think he saw the writing on the wall quite quickly and hoiked him out because he just wasn't a good fit. They've brought somebody in who is a good fit, and I think that is much more of a Swansea type manager. He plays the football that they want. It's been quite practical, actually. I know he's a bit of a Russ disciple, and he's worked with Russ, but actually you've seen more crosses in 2 or 3 games than we saw in Russ's entire reign. So that passing backwards and forwards has kind of gone, and he's been a bit more practical. Whether in the summer that evolves again, I think, because once he's got a pre-season to get with the players, but they're now stuck with players that were bought for Michael Duff that don't suit the way that Williams wants to play, and so they're on 2-3 year contracts.
So they need to sell first, surely.
I see a real summer of problems, I think. Sorry, Swansea
That's the
fans.
optimistic view. Yeah, the summer of problems. Yeah, I think as you touched upon, Michael Duff, seemed like a nice guy, but just didn't fit the club.
No.
From the press conference before the derby, I think he said, what was the quote? He said, if we go up and lose both derbies, I'm happy. And he said that while Swansea were a point above the relegation zone. If you're top of the league and you've won your first 9-10 games, you can say that.
Yeah,
just,
and
that's only just. When you were in the position Swansea were in, and he said that, as you said, the writing was on the wall from that point, and then the performance in the South Wales Derby, the first one of this season, just said it all, really. And I think the other mistake they made was the amount of time they took to replace him. I can't remember how long it was, but I think he went late November, and it was only start of January where they found someone else. And by that point, the season's over.
Yeah.
If you get in someone in early December and turns things around, anything can happen in the Championship. We saw, or in the Football League, really. I think it was Doncaster in League 2 who won their last 12 games or something to finish in the playoff places. That can happen. But they waited so long, and then brought him in mid-January. He doesn't have the whole transfer window. And for a club that on the whole has run things really smoothly for the last 10 years or whatever, this was an off-season, a season to forget on the whole.
Yeah, when it felt like they removed Duff, and I thought, that's a really positive, they've made a real positive statement. They must have somebody lined up.
Yeah.
And then you're going like, soon?
Where is it?
soon. Maybe not. No, still no. So yeah, it was bizarre to say the least, I think, in that respect. And there were so many names being bandied around. From my understanding, they didn't necessarily get their number one choice, from people I've spoken to. But I think Williams is a good fit. So I will say that. And actually, I think my dealings with him, I think he's a really good guy, and I think he'll be a positive influence on the summer.
So style of play is really important to the Swansea fans. We all know that. So maybe he's the right manager for that.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But definitely this summer, then they need reinforcements. Will he be given that back in?
Well, that's
always the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know anything? I mean, the board spoken and said, privately to him, you'll get the back in, because if you've got a new manager in that we clearly know is a different style of play to the last manager, you have to give him money to give him a chance to be successful.
Are they going to go and splash the cash? Absolutely not. No. They're not going to go and splash the cash, because they've got to remove people from the books that they've bought who don't fit his style of football.
But if he sells them players, will he be given that money to spend?
I think what he'll have a list now. And the good thing about him coming in this back half of the season is he's had a half a season to look at all the players, hasn't he? He knows the ones he wants. He's probably got a list. They've gone through it with Andy Coleman. They would like to think that they are ready to go in the transfer market. So there may be a player or two that they bring in who are of a decent wage, maybe, and what have you. But I don't think they won't be fishing in the pool of the Championship. They'll be looking at League One and League Two and teams like that they can get a bargain from, and it'll be a type again. It'll be a younger player that they can mould and push forward. I mean, Liam Cullen. This is what worries me about the Swansea summer transfer market, is that we've seen Liam Cullen almost out of contract and not getting a long-term deal, not getting a paid deal. He's just got an extension of his deal, and he's now got to go and prove himself again. So there's other players within that are kind of in a similar boat, and I do worry that behind the scenes that financially it's not quite there to push them on.
I wonder how good they'd be about Morgan Whittaker as well, because they were looking at a goal scorer they had on the books last year, let go. And not that Plymouth have had a great year, but he's been really, really good for them all year.
Been exceptional, yeah.
Been looking at him and just scratching their heads thinking, if only we had him on the side.
Is there players that you spotted on a lower level that could do a job for Swansea, can maybe step up and play? I know earlier you mentioned a few players from Mansfield as well. Yeah,
I mean, I haven't, you only see what League One I see on the TV covering the Welsh side, so it would be nice next year that we've got that variety. I know a lot of the guys in the office who want to tick off all the grounds in the Football League. They're looking at League One for ages now, going, come on, we need to get there. And so finally they've got that opportunity next year with Wrexham, which will be good. Yeah, so in terms of League One players, not too clued up. There's been some really good players in League Two. Langstaff, top goal scorer, was with Luke Williams at Notts County, and you'd have to fancy. I think he was asked on one of his first press conferences, is he'd be someone you targeted in January, and it didn't happen then. But I would be surprised if there's not a few phone calls between those clubs and looking to get that deal done.
There's a few players in Notts County that could do a job maybe for Swansea potentially. So.
Yeah. And I think a manager goes with tried and trusted as well, doesn't he? Certainly with the type of football that Luke wants to play, he needs players that understand and buy into that, and he has got that within the Swansea squad as well. So, but whether we see the likes of Joe Allen there next year, I remain unconvinced whether that will continue. And I think there's a lot of question marks, and he's got a big summer ahead of him.
Yeah, and I think Joe will come out with a statement if he's going to retire, for example, pretty soon, I'd imagine. You'd like to think he'd let them know early on instead of later on in the season to give them a chance to rebuild.
Well, it depends whether the manager wants him.
Yeah, that's true.
I think.
That's another question.
Being very, very sort of blunt about it. Luke will have his ideas on the type of players that he wants in there, and whether Joe fits still what he wants. Still been terrific, hasn't he, this season in the bits I've watched of Joe. But the body is the body, isn't it? And he's done a lot of hard yards.
And the wages as well. That factors into it, of course. Okay, let's switch to Cardiff City then. We've had news today that Vincent Tan has given Mehmet Dalman the green light to start contract talks with Erol Bulut. So, Phil, where do you want to pick up on that?
I just think it's very Cardiff City. This it shouldn't come as a surprise anymore, and it still seems to year on year. the fact that it's not been decided, it's what now, end of April, and we're finally getting a green...
One game to go.
Well, getting a green light to start contract negotiations is absolutely mind-boggling. It really is. And I'm not saying keeping Bulut or getting rid of Bulut, one of them is the right answer, but the decision should have been made by now. And I think it's probably the right decision to stick with him. Cardiff haven't had continuity in so long. Sticking with a manager who's taken them from a team that survived the Championship on account of Reading's point deduction last year to, top half probably finish, depending on this last game. It's not been great football. We were talking about it just before we started. It's not been thrilling football. It's not attacking. It's not full of flair. But that's not really been Cardiff City for a while. When Warnock was there, it wasn't attacking and full of flair. But they got results and they won games. And Cardiff fans are different in that respect to Swansea. If wins are coming, that's what matters most down there. So give Bulut a transfer window or a summer transfer window now where he can actually spend money because the embargo's gone. I think he's done a good job. He's not done a great job, but he's done a good job, and I think he's deserved the chance to prove himself and prove that he can build the team in the Championship.
Yeah, it's fair to say there's been progress there, Laurence, and that's what the fans would have wanted.
It couldn't have got worse. If it was worse, they'd be playing Wrexham next year. But yeah, sorry, go on.
No, so do you think that he's the right man potentially for Cardiff City to kind of build again next season?
I think he is. I think he's a good Cardiff City manager. He's a straight talker. He fronts up, chest out, puffs his chest out, and I think Cardiff fans like that sort of manager. They're not so kind of hell-bent on playing a certain style of football, Cardiff. It's more about winning and enjoying their football, I think, and if they can get behind a manager, then I think he's the type of guy. So yeah, I think in many respects, I don't think it's a bad decision. I think I just think it just needed to be made, didn't it? It's like, here's our vision for the club. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah, totally.
But and that frees him up to say, do you know what? If I'm here next year and we're safe in the league, brilliant. Right, Kean Ashford, you can come in earlier. Colwill, right, we're going to play you more because I know that I'm safe and I'm getting this contract and I'll be here with my family next year. So we're all good. Rather than, right, I still need to dog out a few results here and there, rather than going like, here's a future for you, Cardiff. You got some great young players. I mean, fantastic. That game against Southampton where you saw Louis Giles. I watched him for Wales under-17s. Terrific left back, really good quality. So great to see him playing.
Conte played really well as well.
Conte, came out absolutely nowhere. And he's a midfielder. I've not watched much of him, to be fair, but I've been told he's a midfielder who sort of went in at right back and was terrific. And so you've got these young players, and maybe if he felt safer in his position, he would have played them earlier. He may not have, but
But I get what you're saying,
but give him the option. Say, look, okay, here you go. There's your 2-year contract. Go and get these young players in, build us a team, spend the next year building a team, and then we'll see where you are, because that's what they desperately need, isn't it? Desperately.
And there is some youth, like young talent there for him to use. Colwill, has hit the press, and everyone knows how good he can be on his day. But his brother as well, Joel, they'll get Isaac Davis back from his loan spell, and they had signed another centre back, a young centre back who's been playing out in Kortrijk, I think it said, in the Belgium league. So there is reason to be optimistic, I think, going forward. But as you say, it's a shame that he wasn't, if he got given the vote of confidence in March, when they were already safe, relegation was not really a threat, he would have been far more inclined, you've got to feel, to play these youngers, give Kean Ashford more game time. And the last couple of games have been more exciting. There's been a sign of the future there, which has taken until now, because maybe he got a sort of earlier heads up than we found out today about the green light on the contract, and which is why these youngsters, we've seen them more often. Yeah,
you'd like to think that he'd have backed himself and done some planning ahead, but then you wouldn't blame him if he hadn't as well, because football is a ridiculously ruthless sport. So whether he's planned or not, but one thing is, I think, abundantly clear is Cardiff need a striker. They possibly need 2 strikers. Where and who could they go and get, Philip?
I don't think they're going to be looking at Premier League strikers. There are a few Championship strikers I know are out of contract at the end of the season. The likes of, I think, Che Adams. If Southampton go up, I'd be surprised if they renew his contract. Iniacho is probably a bit far, but there's sort of some good Championship level strikers who have Premier League experience who are out of contract. the question's always going to come down to wages and how much players like that do want. But if Cardiff are serious about building, bringing in a name like that who's proven goal scorer at championship level, it's a must, really.
Yeah. And people like Nat Phillips, he's obviously on loan from Liverpool. He's been like Rolls Royce in defence. He's been brilliant, to be fair. I've seen a lot of him playing. How do you kind of make that club attractive for players like that? It is by kind of getting marquee signings like a striker that he gets excited about, even though he's a defender, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's selling them a dream of where they're going and what they're doing. And it comes back to having that vision of what the club is about and where it's going. And I think if you can sell that to a player, at the moment you're selling 1 year plans.
Yeah.
Aren't you? Like essentially you're selling 1 year plans. And that's fine when you have got a transfer embargo and you can't spend anything, because you're bringing players in on loan and they're going, yeah, I'll give you a year. But you got Aaron Ramsey there who, you know, if you can get fit again, and we know Aaron's, again, there's issues with his body and he's reaching the tail end of his career, but you can build that kind of buzz around him that he's still there and still involved. So the frustration is that I think actually you've got a decent manager, you've got some good young players, and you've got a crowd that's still turning up with 20-odd thousand. So that everything's there. It needs some TLC and it needs some vision from the men at the top. And so far,
has been the issue for a while.
Has been the issue, hasn't it?
Do you think Vincent Tan will spend some money now that the embargo's gone, or do you think that, you know, there's rumours of kind of bids being put in which are way lower than what kind of Tan wants?
I think
to read into any of this.
I think Vincent Tan is the only man who knows what Vincent Tan's going to do. Some of the stuff he's done, you know, the investment in the club has been great, but some of the decisions, I think it was when they got to the Premier League under Warnock and he said he wants 50 shots in a game, and he was talking about the goalkeeper shooting from halfway and all this crazy stuff. What Vincent Tan wants to do, he's a man unto himself, really. So I wouldn't want to go about predicting what he will and won't do. If they are serious, investment is needed. That's what I will say, that they do need to invest in that squad. And the likes of Nat Phillips, who we've touched upon, there's been reports that Leeds are wanting him, and whether Leeds go up or stay in the Championship. If you're looking at Liverpool, who are we going to send our defender to? Leeds or Cardiff, where the two clubs are right now, it's a no-brainer, really, to send them to the better team and the footballing team. So Cardiff need that allure back. They need that pull to bring in these players, and investment is a good way of going about that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, it's going to be an interesting summer.
I think so. I think it's going to be a really interesting summer because he will get a bit more of a chance to put his stamp on it, and he does know the player. So I'm kind of interested to see where he goes with it, and just how Cardiff want to sort of place themselves as well. There's some good people there, but at the club, and they're desperate for success. They're absolutely desperate. The city's desperate for a bit of success there as a club, and will be interesting to see how they build on it. But I think they'll bring in a centre forward. I think it'll be probably a younger type of centre forward, maybe on loan if they're going to look at somebody. A central midfield needs some work. So I really think they desperately need. We were talking about Joe Rawls and what a great servant he's been for Cardiff. And this is no disrespect to him, but between him, Siopsis and Wintour, there needs to be somebody with a bit of pace to get up and down that pitch. They're all good holding midfielders, but they need some dynamism to get them up and down the pitch. Colwell desperately needs to be given that number 10 role and just go and play 15, 20 games, go and play and show us what you're about. Because
on Ruben, that's interesting actually, because I think if Ruben doesn't get that next season, then maybe, and I'd hate to see this happen, he'd have to maybe leave to get a run of games.
It was the only disappointment for me from Cardiff's point of view when they signed Aaron Ramsey, because that was where it was going. It kind of felt like this was going to be the year, and then they brought Ramsey in, and you had Callum Robinson still there as well playing in that position. He was like, it's going to be another year of waiting on Ruben Colwell. And you know, Ramsey has spent most of the season on the sidelines, but Ruben hasn't still been given that proper run of games, which you know, anyone who's got a backing or an interest in Wales or Cardiff would want to see for him. So, and he has shown it in glimpses. The Bristol City game at home, the goal he scored to win that game for the Sevenside derby was unbelievable. So he's definitely, you know, there's still no denying his talent, but he needs the run of games, as you say. Otherwise, would he be looking for a loan elsewhere? Would he be looking for a move elsewhere?
Well, he's worked hard on his game as well. Certainly, in the last few matches, I've seen the tracking that he's done. You can see he's been working on the defensive element of his game and the fact he has to put more effort in. So he's definitely working hard. Maybe the penny's dropped a little bit, in terms of that, and his body is now allowing him to be able to do those type of things and a little bit more of the dirty side of the game, if you like, rather than just kind of waiting to get on it. But against Southampton, while he was kind of played in that wider forward role, he wasn't quite in it. But when he came into the central and he played off Jeju, just changed the game. He was dropping in those little wall passes and he was gone. And I remember talking to Morrison a couple of years ago, and he was just like, this kid is unbelievable in training. Unbelievable. A year, 2 years, you'll see him at a top 4 club. And it's not happened. It's not happened for various reasons, some of which we probably don't know. But yeah, that run of games in that position in the number 10 role where he can get on it. And
I remember when they played Liverpool in the Cup a few years back, and Morrison was in charge that game, and Colwell came on, and Cardiff lost the game 3-1, but he scored a brilliant goal at the end of the second half, and it was the first player that Jurgen Klopp went up to at full time onto the pitch and sort of shook his hand. And Colwell said in the interview afterwards, he's like, he said, I'll keep an eye out for you, big things are coming for you. And when managers of that stature are spotting it in 19, 20-year-olds, you know it's real.
Yeah, but then the pressure for Cardiff managers, you've got to go to Rotherham and get a result, and you've got to go to do you know what I mean? And that's true. Where you can't. I don't necessarily trust him. Don't trust him to do that defensive side of it. Don't trust him to kind of not be inspirational or what have you, because he's a kid. And that's what he needs. He needs to be trusted and put in there. That comes a bit from him, and it comes.
But it's also, if you get games, that trust is clear then, isn't 100%. It? Jurgen Klopp. Typical Jurgen Klopp doing that. Typical. I can tell I'm not a Liverpool fan.
It's definitely not what he said to Salah on the weekend, was it?
No.
Definitely not.
I want to know what was said on that touchline. Because the only reason on that quickly, right, a manager would get angry with a player really is because he's not ready or kind of. Or he's literally just said something rude back to the manager. What else could have happened? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, it was fascinating to watch. To be a fly on the wall in that dressing room afterwards would have been incredible, because he just looked so annoyed. And I think Salah said at full time when a reporter went up to him, it's like, if I speak, there's going to be fire, and he just sort of avoided it. So
just to set fire to everything.
I mean, it's not been the end of the Premier League season or the end of Klopp that Liverpool wanted, because so far away from it. I mean, it was only in January talks of a quadruple, and that's gone up in smoke.
Well, do you know what? One mad thing, years ago, just before Sadio Mane left Liverpool, I was in London in a restaurant having a meal, and we were recording some TV work, and Mo Salah's agent joined us for a meal.
Oh, nice.
And so I knew after that meal that he was staying, and I knew Salah was, and I knew Sadio Mane was going. But put it this way, I would say there was convincing for him to stay. The agent wasn't 100% want him to stay. So agents have got a massive role to play in when the players leaving. They're in their ears and all this. And it's true. And I saw it with my own eyes, and I was just sitting there trying to eat my food, eat my pizza, my steak or whatever it was, thinking, wow. But yeah, he came for half an hour, he left, and that was it. I'm not going to name who else was there because it's too obvious then and I'll get in trouble. But there we go. Anyway, let's turn our attention to this weekend's football, because we have got some. So let's do that with our partner and our sponsor, James Lovell from DragonBet.
DragonBet, the bookmaker of Wales with the best odds on Welsh sport. Please gamble responsibly.
James Lovell, welcome to the pod once again this week. You okay?
Yeah, good. Survived the weekend. Not much better off. We had a good day at the point-to-point on Saturday, although it was freezing cold, and lost yesterday. All the 3 Premiership teams won, so that's never good for us bookies.
Yeah.
All the 3 Premiership favourites.
But you've had a celebration in the house, though, which is always good.
Yeah, boy's 7th birthday, Ninja Warrior. So, I think me and you, Gare, we're going to try and get around the track. Should we have a side bet? You'll definitely be favourite.
I don't know. I've got a bad back at the moment, mate. I was just hoping you'd be coming on with the bandana they wear, from Ninja Warriors. Were you wearing it in the party?
I haven't got one big enough for my head, do I?
You said that, so it's fine. Okay, let's get straight down to business then. It's the last weekend in the Championship. Rotherham, Cardiff, Swansea, Millwall. How are the odds looking on that one, buddy?
Yeah, they're both favourites, which is unusual. It hasn't happened a lot this year, but Cardiff are 11-10 to beat Rotherham, and Swansea are also 11-10 to beat Millwall. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, what is the better bet? Both the same odds. Who do you think would be the better bet there?
Philip?
If I had to pick out the two, I'd pick Swansea.
Yeah.
Would you?
Just at home, Rotherham, nothing to play for. Last home game, Cardiff, they're probably more likely to start a few of the youngsters. It could go well, but if I had to put money on either, it'd be Swansea.
Yeah, I'd say same. I think if it was put on either, it'd be Swansea. But I don't know. Why not a double? Rotherham are terrible.
Well, it's interesting you say that because you've got a boost on that, yeah, James?
Yeah, we have got a boost, so we're going 5-2 the double. So we're boosting them out. Normally it'd work just over 2-1, so we're going to boost them out to 2.5 to win the double. So
done. I'll take that.
Get on it, boys.
Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, let's switch to the Premiership then, rugby, because it's a big weekend in the Cup because it's semi-finals time.
Yeah, it's really good. Obviously, there's a lot happening in Welsh rugby. I don't know if you've seen Did anyone see the response from Neath yesterday? They put a response out on Twitter. I thought it was really well worded.
It's going to rumble on that one, I think, for a while. It's just... And you can't help but feel for them, really. I don't know how much you've covered it, Philip, in the Beeb, but...
Not tons, but yeah, as you say, it's a tough situation that they've been put in.
Yeah, and I guess it's that Cardiff favouritism is the city, because they're the city. Does that come into it? Yeah, that's the question everyone really is asking. Do you know what I mean? I think that's what Neath are asking as well at the same time, Well,
every post Neath put out, they had the Cardiff shirt on the top of the infographic with Nigel Walker's shirt on the back of it. So they were definitely having a little bit of a dig along the way.
I didn't notice that. Wow. I didn't notice that.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, they had it on. And the quote yesterday was, Neath is as important to Welsh rugby as a mouth is to eating, which I think is right. They're a proper club, Neath, aren't they? So hopefully they'll be back next year.
Well, wasn't the Welsh Rugby Union formed in Neath, in a hotel in Neath, I believe it was? So there's another story there with that. Okay, so Llandovery versus Cardiff is one semi-final, and then it's Newport Ebbw Vale. Am I right in saying that, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. So we have got Llandovery, who have been they've just been unstoppable all season, haven't they? So Llandovery against Cardiff, we're giving Cardiff a 12-point head start. And Newport against Ebbw Vale, we're giving Ebbw Vale an 8-point head start. So Llandovery and Newport are both the favourites there. In match odds terms, Llandovery would be 1-6 and Newport would be 4-11. We've also got loads of specials on the site, Ebbw Vale to win by a certain amount of points.
Okay.
Carwin's not impressed by that, is he? Carwin wasn't. He was not having it. Yeah, producer Carwin was all over the place with that. Not your bet. No, he's shaking his head. No.
Well, I think Llandovery will be favourites in that one. I agree with that, and I think Newport are favourites. So I think that's what people thinking is going to be the final. But hey, it's a cup game, right? Anything can happen in that. But lots of specials on that, so I'm sure lots of fans will jump on that as well.
We've been settling all our Welsh bets, all the season's coming to an end, and working out the damage done on so we put up the outrights for all the leagues down. We've had a disaster. These punters are very, very hard to beat. I mean, one league we had, I've mentioned Blinder a few times because I'm having nightmares about him. We had them 50-1 to win the title, and they've gone and won it. So we have lost more money than I want to say on here in case my wife's listening on Blinder winning the title. So Welsh rugby is very, very hard to price up.
You need to find some scouts to help you out with next season.
Carwin.
Oh yeah, we need. Carwin. We get Carwin in.
Okay. You'll be covering the cricket though as well on the website and the app all through the week and the summer. That's of course kicking off and stuff. Horse racing. Anything to point out on horse racing for us?
Horse racing. So we're coming to the end of the jump season. Sean Bowen unfortunately missed out on the Jockeys Championship, so he lost out to Harry Cobden. But he was so good all season. He was out for 7 weeks with a knee injury. And he missed out I think he lost out by 6. So we're going 3-1 him to win it next year, which probably isn't a bad bet. But just talking about Welsh horse racing overall, there were in the top 10 jockeys in the UK, 4 of them were Welsh. And we haven't got many yards here. We're not a big kind of racing nation. It just shows the talent we have in Wales through horse racing, especially jockeys. Our Welsh jockeys, they are tough, man. Proper tough guys, and they're really, really good as well.
So with that, then, if the jockeys are at the top of their game, will they every week be riding the better horses? So follow the jockey's career, you could follow the money potentially.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, often they're priced kind of. So if Sean Bowen's riding a horse, the odds are likely to be shorter because he will make a difference. But there's certain jockeys that are well worth following. In fact, there's a trainer called Robbie Llewellyn, who's a young Welsh trainer. If you're betting all his horses this year, he's just started off. I think it's his second season training. If you bet every one of his, you're winning about 30 odd quid for every pound you've staked. He is doing really, really well. So it's a good idea to get these jockeys as they start off early. Bet them early before the market kind of catches up.
Yeah.
Duly noted. Taking notes.
Well, there's a jockey coming through. He's only 16 at the moment. He is Tim Vaughan, the trainer's son, Ed Vaughan. So he rode 5 winners in the point-to-point on Saturday. Won't be riding many rides, but if you see him on a race card somewhere, he'd be worth a bet because his odds will be bigger than what they should be because he's really, really class.
I know jump season's coming to an end, and I may be jumping it forward for you guys with the pod, but Chepstow's flat racing season starts, doesn't it, in a couple of weeks? I'm going to be there, James. So any tips, anything you've got for me for the flat racing kickoff?
You have to come down and see us.
Brilliant.
Chepstow flat racing's always fun. It is the most varied kind of nights you have ever. The midweek's you get a lot of the oldies there, it's very relaxed, and then you have things like the reggae night, the rum and reggae night, which is wild, proper wild. You get all the Bristol lot, the Swansea lot, the Cardiff lot. I won't say what happens there, but it's not exactly Royal Ascot, put it that way, but it's lots of fun. So make sure you come and say hello, and the rum and reggae night is highly recommended.
Good stuff. Yeah, no, there for the opener, I think 14th, 14th of May. So really, really looking forward to that.
Bring plenty of money along with you.
Good stuff. Okay, we were going to talk snooker, but all the Welsh boys are out with the snooker. But if you want to bet on the World Championship, you can do with Dragon Bet. James Lovell, always been a pleasure to speak to you. Have a nice week and go and find that Ninja Warrior costume. I'll see you down there very soon.
Warming up now, Gav. I'm warming up.
Good stuff, mate.
See you
Top man.
later.
Cheers, buddy. Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Okay,
Bye.
we're done for the week, guys. Laurence, plans this week?
Plans this week. Plymouth for me against Hull. So a huge game for them. Yeah, really, really big game.
Yeah, okay. And Philip?
I actually got the weekend off. I've got some friends coming down, so I'll enjoy the Champions League in midweek,
definitely.
and then enjoy some. Yes, the season's ended a bit early for me, so I'll enjoy that.
He's doing what I said earlier. You know, the hangover. He's going for the hangover route.
It's going early.
It's the usual route.
Nothing wrong with that. Thank you so much for your company today, guys. Really appreciate it. And remember, we'll be back next Monday for more Sport in Wales chat, and you can follow us on all our socials. Just search Sport in Wales. Tell your friends about us and share the love, and we'll catch you next week. Wherever you go, wherever you are, enjoy your Sport in Wales week.
Sport in Wales podcast.
Supported by Dragon Bet.
Your go-to for Welsh sports news and views.